My name is William Bill Lott, and I'm running for District 4 School Board. Well, I believe probably the first thing I would do, as far as with the school board and with the idea of the spending, is to try to find out and determine where we're at and what we can do, what we can do as far as presenting something to the taxpayers, and make sure first of all that there's a need for those bond issues, and that we're properly, I guess, bringing forth those issues that need to be looked at. I think we've got the best school system around, but I think too that we've got to be wise with what we're presenting. So I think the taxpayers, those that do not have children, still are going to benefit from whatever the school system is doing, because what we do with our kids, raising them up, is going to make a difference on what they are able to do for the society and for the community and that kind of thing. So even if a family does not have a child in school, there's still a benefit from what they're going to gain from the school system. Well, I think, going back to what I just said, I think it's part of it. I think is past history. Have you used the money wisely that you've been entrusted with? And I think the citizens are going to trust or distrust its representatives based on what they've seen done. And Bossier school system, Bossier school board has, I think, for years has been respected by most for the leadership it's had, and through the members that it's had, and through the teachers. And so I think the trust comes from the past and even the present, to see that they're doing what's needed, not just what's popular, and not just giving more if it's not necessarily needed. Well, I think the opportunities are to I guess in some ways I'm kind of a defender of the underdog sometimes, and I think we've got a lot of kids that are being left behind, and I hate to use that term, but sometimes I think that our school systems tend to focus on certain areas and leave out some other areas, and or at least when it comes to funding, I think sometimes that it may not always be equally dispersed. So I think some of the challenges would be to make sure that's properly being done, and that we're all getting what we need, and nobody's being left unchecked or overlooked. I think some of the challenges we have, and one of the things that is one of my biggest issues, is school security. I think that's got to be one of the priorities that we look at as leaders in the community, whether it be in the city or in the parish. And I think we've got, with some recent additions with the SROs, the people that we have in those leadership positions have done a great job, but I think that there's tons that we need to do, and so that would be one of the challenges I would say that needs to be looked at. Well, again, I think when you just take a drive, and in my district you've got 3 high schools that's represented, not to overlook the middle schools or elementary schools, but you got 3 high schools that's represented in District 4, and it's not just a school system issue. I think it's community issues. There's a big difference when you look at that district, and I think going back to what I said a while ago, I think in some cases some areas have been kind of overlooked sometimes, and I think as leaders of the school board or parish leaders or city leaders, I think it's important not to just take for granted one group, one area, one school, or one community and just kind of put them off to the side. And I think sometimes that's what happens, whether it be, hopefully it's unintentional, but I think sometimes it happens. Well, I think the positives far outweigh the negatives, first of all, and I think that first of all, I think it's in hiring great teachers, and you know, anybody, and I've talked in the last couple of weeks to a lot of teachers, and I know some teachers personally that I've talked to, and I've asked basically the same question: is what are the pros and what are the cons? You know, what do you see that's the good points, and what do you see as the bad points? And you know, some teachers they'll kind of get a little you know, a little more emotion in their voice when they start talking about the negatives. But if you ask them that question first, and then you come back and ask them what are the positives, every one of them will tell you that we've got the best school system in the state. And so I think that tells you a whole lot about the teachers that we've hired, and I think that's where it's got to start. It starts in the classroom, and that's where it's, you know, the biggest part. As far as the cons, I think from what I hear from teachers and from what I've seen, and I've got 2 small children that are in elementary schools in Bossier City right now. I think one of the things that is, I'm not going to say that it's negative as far as what the school board has done or the parish has done, but I think discipline is lacking in our schools, just like it's lacking in the homes. It's lacking in society. So I think we've got to do a better job of taking care of the discipline problems when they do arise. And I think to do that, the school administrators have got to understand that that's their responsibility, and also protect them the best we can to be able to do their job. I think sometimes some of our school administrators may be afraid to take certain actions based on the repercussions on it, and we've got to give them that security that they can do what needs to be done without you know, fear of lawsuits. Well, I think that if I'm elected to District 4, that's the people that I'm first going to try to listen to and assist them in their needs. But, and I think it's a good question, because it's not just District 4 that I'm representing, it's a school board. And so going back to what I said about the tax dollars, you know, I believe that there's needs in District 4 that needs to be met, but just because I want something in my district, that's going to affect the whole parish. And so it has to be fairly handled, and I think that's, you know, a lot of times leaders want what their people is going to be pleased with, and that's not necessarily the best thing. So I think you have to do both. You have to work on your district and take care of those district needs, but also at the same time see how does that fit in the big picture. Well, I don't think anybody can give you the answer to that. Everybody's got an opinion on it. And I don't know that I have a flat answer, but I will say this, and it may go over in some of your other questions. I think evaluations are good in any job place. I think evaluations are a positive thing. But at the same time, when we're evaluating teachers, I don't think that we can look at those teachers and necessarily measure this teacher against this teacher when you look at the children that are different. And I just think that every child is different. Their opportunities of learning are different. Their abilities of learning is different, and so I just don't. I don't know that I have the answer on how to evaluate them, but I believe you just have to evaluate them based on what they have to deal with and their classroom. Are they doing the job? Are they performing? Are they putting forth the effort and using the tools that's available to them? And are their children advancing? Regardless of how low a child may be, I don't believe you can judge that classroom as a whole. You've got to take each individual child separately, and you can't just look at the higher or the faster excelling kids. You got to, that teacher's responsibility is to work with every child and to improve every child, regardless of whether they're one of the top or one of the lower ones. Fairness, it's subjective, and so I think fairness is one of them. And there again is the standards that's being set. I think you got to be careful on the standards. Everybody, just like when we were in school, everybody knew who were the excelling students and who were the slower students, just like we knew who were the excelling teachers and who were the ones that were not excelling the same race. It doesn't take a genius to know who's doing their jobs and who aren't. But I think the evaluations, you just got to be careful on how you set those standards and how you set those evaluations on that you're not comparing apples and oranges. Well, to be honest with you, I don't know that I can answer that because I don't know what training is available to them just yet. That would be something I would certainly look at. And training is something that I'm very big on from my past working history. That's something that I believe is very important in not just in teachers, but in administrators and school board members. They need to be trained to know what are the best ways, and we've got a lot of a lot of new ideas on education, and our state has taken on some of those ideas, and I think after we've taken on some of them, there's a lot of questions about were they really the best. So I think you just have to look and evaluate the evaluations to find out what is the best way to do it. I don't have the answer right now. I would certainly try to get the right answer if elected. Well, I I think you've got to have both, and as far as how you strike that balance, I don't know exactly how you would strike the balance, but I do believe that the teachers, there's got to be accountability, and I think that's one of the problems we have in society is there is no accountability. So I think each teacher has got to be given the goal that's set forth. What is that teacher's goal in the classroom? Give them the tools to reach those goals. Give them directions on those goals, and then hold them accountable to reach the goals set forth. And I think when you're doing evaluations, you're going to see whether or not that person, that teacher, is reaching the goals that's set forth. So I think there's got. The only way you're going to know whether or not the teacher is doing their job is to have evaluations. So I think they both go together. You've got to have accountability, and you've got to have evaluations too. So I don't know how you separate them. I think they got to go together. I don't know that I would just right now. I've looked into that just a little bit, but not a great deal. I think the school system that we have and that we have always had is a good system. I just think that we need to tweak here and there and improve on what we have. I wouldn't say it's time to go to a charter system, but it's something that that probably could be looked at. But I'm not convinced that we need to do the charter school system just yet. Well, first of all, the first factor is my spiritual beliefs. Is it right with the Lord? My second factor is going to go right along with the first one, and that is it fair? And I think in that is there a need, and I think it'll all go together. Well, I think that as a district school board member, you have to include the citizens of that district, and I think a lot of times, and I don't. This is my first time in politics, and I hate to even use that word sometimes, but because politicians don't have a real good name with the voters. Even though we keep voting for them, the history of politicians is not real good, especially in Louisiana. But I believe that a lot of times we end up voting on people, and then they forget who they're representing. And I didn't go searching for this job. I was presented with the opportunity. I have thought about it for a while, but my only reason for going into this field is to try to help and try to improve and to do things that would better our community. So I think first of all you got to bring the voice of the citizens, the voice of the district with you in what you're doing. And I've said a lot of times in the past that there's nothing wrong with a representative going back to the community, and I think we've seen it with some of the town hall meetings to where some of our state leaders are going back now and asking for the voice of the people and giving them the opportunity to be heard. And so I think that's important. And so that's how I would do it. Well, I'm not sure that what I feel on that is going to make a difference, because it's a state issue and states that are deciding it. I've talked to a lot of teachers, and their voices are that they weren't necessarily in favor of it, but it's what we have. The biggest question I think that most of the teachers now, and I agree, is the question now is not so much whether we support Common Core. The question is, for the teachers, is the testing to go along with Common Core. And most of the teachers at this point, they have no idea what test is going to be used. So that's the question that I think is important right now, is we've got the system, and most teachers that I've talked to have said that it's kind of at a point now, it's too late to go backwards. We pretty much got it. We're going to have to make the best of it, but we need to, at least for right now, it looks like we've got it for good. So the issue now is to try to make it as organized and as smooth a transition, and I still think we're in a transition period of it. But I can see some good with the Common Core. Now this is where issue where, you know, as I said a while ago, I think we've got two philosophies in the Common Core and in No Child Left Behind beliefs. And to me, in some ways, they almost kind of contradict one another. That we're trying to teach all our kids on the same level, and in my opinion, that can't be done, not effectively. Not all kids are at the same level, and I'm afraid that we're just going to have to be real careful on how that's done. But I think most of it is out of our hands. It's in the state's hands. Mm-hmm. So I don't see where Bossier Parish, at least as far as I know right now, Bossier Parish school system really has no say-so in that matter right now. We're stuck with it. If that's what we've got. So whether it's good or bad, that's what we have. So we just need to make the best of it. The only thing, as I said a minute ago, you know, I don't look at myself or think about myself in politics or whatever. My number one goal, and I know that it may not necessarily be popular with some people, my number one goal in doing this is to glorify the Lord. And however, if it works out I'm elected, then everything I'm going to do is going to be doing to glorify Him. The second thing is to serve the citizens and to represent them and to do what's fair, to do what's right. And I think if my first part is right, then the rest of it's going to work out the way it's supposed to be.